Today on Knobi Cooks I will show you how to prepare a super fast and super delicious vegetarian dish. I will show you how to prepare gnocchi with broccoli and pesto. It is the perfect recipe for a quick dinner. And yet the roasted nuts and the Parmesan cheese make sure you end up with a delicacy. If you enjoy my content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. For today's recipe, you will need some broccoli, some gnocchi, a couple of shallots, some nuts, a couple of garlic cloves, some shaved Parmesan, a glass of pesto, it doesn't have to be very fancy, some olive oil and salt and pepper. And of course our large pan. Since this dish includes roasted nuts, we will start by preparing those. So first of all, take your nuts and cut them into rough chunks on your cutting board. Try to cut them into as uniform chunks as possible. If you cut your nuts into two differently sized chunks, you run risk of burning the smaller ones while the larger ones haven't roasted yet. You can use a plain old kitchen knife for that, but if you have a curved knife, it will probably be better suited for the job. Today I'm using cashews, though you can also use walnuts, hazelnuts or pine nuts. And if you really want to go crazy, use a mix of different nuts. After cutting your nuts, put them into your pan and then roast them at medium-high to high heat. The nuts usually roast very quickly, so pay attention to them while you're cutting the other ingredients. Some of the smaller pieces may burn, though they usually will stick to the pan, which makes sorting them out later on very easy. While our nuts are roasting away, we will now turn our attention to our shallots and our garlic. So simply cut the shallots in half, then cut across them laterally and afterwards horizontally to receive some nice dices. Here you can easily go for larger chunks in order to add some texture to the dish. And after cutting all of your shallots, repeat the same process for the garlic cloves, which leaves us only with the broccoli left to cut. As you can see, this recipe involves very few ingredients. And it also involves more pre-processed foods than other recipes you have seen on this channel, like the gnocchi or the pesto. Nevertheless, we will end up with a very healthy and very tasty meal. And even though they are ready made, both pesto and gnocchi are still not highly processed food like a meal straight out of the freezer, which still leaves us in control of what ends up in our meal. And if you want to take this dish to the next level, you can of course make your own pesto and own gnocchi, though this will of course lead to much more effort. You just need to be aware of that. Okay, and by now our nuts should have roasted enough. Maybe turn them once or twice more, but after that put them aside in a bowl or on a plate. And as you can see, the very small burnt pieces are now sticking to the pan. Simply don't add them into the bowl or onto the plate, and briefly clean out your pan before continuing with cooking. Speaking of which, we can now continue by putting some fat into our pan. I'm using olive oil here, though you can just as well go for butter. Since both pan and cooking stove are most likely still hot, we can also immediately add our diced shallots and diced garlic into the pan. We're gonna want to roast both of them until they start browning. And in the meantime, we can cut our broccoli, as most of the time I am once again using frozen broccoli. If you too want to use frozen broccoli, simply make sure you thaw it in time. And after thawing, make sure to drain off the broccoli juice and water. Cutting the broccoli is very easy. Simply quarter your broccoli like you see me doing here. And if you want to go for even smaller broccoli pieces, like I do, cut them into eighths afterwards. And that's the whole trick. And don't forget to show your shallots and garlic some love from time to time. Since the pan was already heated up, they will probably start browning in no time. Which is exactly what happened for me. Since both shallots and garlic have now roasted to my satisfaction, it is time to add our gnocchi into the mix. And simply ignore the unelegant way in which I am opening my package of gnocchi. After putting them into your pan, be aware of the fact that they are quite dry, which in turn will lead to them soaking up any of the shallot and garlic juice as well as the fat in your pan. And because they are very dry, they are also very susceptible to burning. So make sure to stir them rather often to prevent them from sticking. And while we are roasting our gnocchi for a short while, we will finish cutting our broccoli in the meantime. And more or less as soon as we are done with that, add the broccoli into the pan. This will also introduce some additional moisture and make the sticking problem basically go away. Then simply mix all ingredients together and roast them for a short while. The shorter you roast your broccoli, the more bite it will have and the more crunch your dinner will have. And in the meantime, you can put away your cutting board and knife and also prepare a small beaker with some water in it. And once we have roasted the broccoli to satisfaction, we will add a gulp of water into our pan, but make sure not to add too much. We only want to add enough to steam or cook our gnocchi properly, but we very much don't want to drown our pan. Basically, you should be able to cook off all of the water you add into your pan. We basically want all of it gone by the time we add our pesto into the mix, which incidentally happens to be right now. I am using pesto rosso or red pesto in this case. In theory, you could also go for green pesto or alla genovese, though really any pesto works if you want to go for one including nuts or roasted vegetables. And here I am not adding all of the pesto into the pan because I am leaving it for garnishing the dish later on. And once you have added the pesto into the pan, simply stir it under. And by now you can also turn off the heat of your stovetop. And now only 2 steps remain: seasoning the dish and also adding the nuts into the mix. So first, add as much salt and pepper as you think you need, which usually should be very little, because the pesto comes with much taste and many spices in it. Once you have seasoned the contents of your pan, simply stir them once more, and then in a last step, add the roasted nuts back into the mix, and also stir those under. Though if you prefer to, you can also leave away the nuts at this stage. An alternative way might be to put them onto the table and simply let each person garnish their dish with as much nuts as they like to. No matter which way you choose, we have basically arrived at the end of the recipe. We of course still also have our shaved Parmesan, though that one is still also only for garnishing. We will not add it into the pan, which basically means put a gnocchi with broccoli and pesto onto plates and then garnish it. This brings us to the end of today's episode of Knobi Cooks. I hope you enjoyed this express dish, and if you have prepared it yourselves, tell me down below in the comments how you liked it. With this dish I wanted to show you that a tasty meal doesn't have to take long. And with that said, I am Knobi and I'm signing off. Goodbye.